I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And I'm Mike.
And we are the Heroes 3 plus one.
Plus one.
Welcome to Heroes 3, the bi-weekly podcast where three friends explore the best, worst, and everything in between in the world of Asian cinema. And this week we're taking a little break from our normal Kung Fu Hong Kong action cinema idiom that we normally do. And this week we're taking a look at another animated film, and this one comes from Japan. And that is, of course, the 1986 film Fist of the North Star, or Mike, say Hokuto no Ken, your Japanese voice.
Oh, God. Hokuto no Ken.
There you go. No. We have a special guest this week.
See,
that is Mike.
I was saying earlier that I thought I wouldn't be able to do an Akira Kamiya impression, then I guess I can. So here we are. The ulterior motive has been revealed for this episode.
Yeah, so at the end of last episode, honestly, we were kind of like, oh, what are we going to do next? And Matthew...
Yeah, I cut out a good 10 minutes of us being like, crap.
Yeah.
We don't have anything.
Matthew looked up to the stars and he saw the starry sky and it sent down a signal to him and he said, oh, let's do Fist of the North Star. And my head exploded. So here we are right now.
Oh, I didn't get the head exploded version. I got more of a censored version of what happened to me.
Yeah, you got the white silhouetted version.
Yeah, and actually this should be coming out right around my birthday. So
happy birthday to Carlos.
Yeah, whether you meant it or not, this is kind of like a birthday present to me.
Way to make it about yourself, Carlos. Way to make it about yourself.
So, okay, but listen, Mike, if you weren't on this podcast, it would really be about me because I think between me, these guys...
No, he's not wrong. It would be the Street Fighter episode again.
Yeah. Really,
so I'm just
really
like a deterrent. I'm the means to an end.
You're the only one that can surpass me when it comes to this, Mike.
Okay. A weapon.
Yeah, you're the South Star, I guess.
No.
Yeah. Oh man, I have a story about that too. I'm gonna derail us for the first time.
For once, it wasn't me.
No, there are no rails. Yeah.
It is related to this. So I had purchased an action figure for Mike. And it was based on one of the characters from this.
Yes, I know the story. Oh my god.
Yeah. When I came over to his house to give it to him, I said, hold on, we have to do this. So we reenacted a scene from this film. And when we get to that point, I'll tell you what happened. But
all right.
Does that video exist anywhere? Like
no, it doesn't. We did not record it.
But it's true. It is true.
It is 100% true. I still have it. It's on my bookshelf.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this is specifically the 1986 animated film Fist of the North Star. There's a couple of animated films, and of course it is based on the manga of the same name from 84, 82, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit earlier.
83 or something?
82.
Okay.
Yeah,
somewhere
82.
in the crazy times.
Yeah. And of course it was adapted into an anime in 86, or 86, what am I saying? In 84. And this film is directed by the same person that helped kind of produce and direct the anime. Is that right?
Yeah, Toyo Ashida. He directed this. And actually, I think the year before he did Vampire Hunter D, which is another kind of notable film from around this time.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, we're right in the Japanese economic bubble where we're blessed with all these really cool animated films. I think, 86 is also Transformers the movie. 88 is Akira. And, just so many. 85 is Macross Do You Remember Love, I believe?
I thought that was 84.
Classic.
Yeah,
was that?
It's around there. So
mid-80s still.
Nazca would have come out around that time too. And
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This aesthetic and this era of anime is like what I live for. It's
oh yeah, and it's such a distinct look. This 80s style,
mm-hmm.
And I was thinking this too whenever I first watched it. Was this looks like a much better animated version of G.I. Joe was the first thing I thought of. And it turns out, but that's the thing, they were both Toei Animation.
Yeah.
So a lot of like the way that it looks and like the colors and like the way that people's eyes look, like the size of their eyes compared to their heads, I think is similar. Obviously, one's a lot better animated than the other. But
and then at one point, the voice actor from Starscream yells, "Cobra, retreat, retreat!"
All this stuff is a lot more related than many people know. And I think nowadays it's more common that people know that a lot of their favorite 80s cartoons were animated by a lot of the same Japanese studios that did a lot of these, seminal films. And it's either
and also Jim. Jim is in Jim and Holograms.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of those like really great like co-productions. I mean, shout out to Mighty Orbots for kind of helming the way on that one, even though they were shut down by Tonka.
Sure, there's Tokyo Movie Shinsha is an animation studio that did a lot of work in America. Toei Animation also being one of these studios. So chances are if you dig enough, you're gonna find something from your childhood if you're around our age that was actually basically an anime that
which is not my age. It's a little bit before whenever I was a kid. Sorry to be the young guy again,
but it's timeless.
But for once, that's the thing. It's I grew up watching a lot of this stuff still through my brothers. My brothers were super into G.I. Joe and Ninja Turtles and stuff, so I ended up watching some of it because of them and kind of really loving that style.
Yeah, and going into the 90s, that's like you'd start to see some stuff show up on like TV. Like I remember as a kid watching like the Sci-Fi Channel on Saturdays, and they would show like a anime feature every like Saturday morning or something like that. I think that's when I first watched Robot Carnival, which is like a compilation film that I love a lot. Actually, I think Robot Carnival is like 87. Yeah,
it would have been right around there. Yeah,
a lot of this similar style, a lot of the similar like music and attitude. Fist of the North Star, like we mentioned in other, like I think in the street, we were talking about seinen anime, and this is kind of like at the top of the pyramid. Where I mean, even in Japan, when this film was released in theaters, there were issues with how violent it was. But
it was a sales point at that point. If you watch the original trailer, there's like actual like they're about to show like the explosion, and then suddenly it cuts to like a word balloon or something, and it's as if to be like, to see how gory it is, you have to show up. And then I'm like,
and you kind of do, because it's nuts how violent it gets.
What you can make out, anyways.
That's true. Yeah, so the movie itself, if you watch it, you can find the dubbed version, which we'll get into that later. But the dubbed version is on Amazon Prime. And if you watch it, you'll notice that whenever something particularly horrible happens, like people's intestines getting blown out, their brains falling out of their head as their heads explode, the reason you come to watch Fist of the North Star, it looks kind of like that's on a VHS as opposed to the rest of it, which is in, glorious, beautiful HD.
Yeah, not just a VHS, but it looks like somebody has like their camcorder pointed at the TV at like a slight angle. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, that was a censorship measure, and it kind of works and it kind of doesn't. Like, there's still some very messed up things that do happen throughout. That are still kind of like, that elude the censor spectrovision, as we'll call it.
That's a good way to say it.
So, but
it'd be interesting to kind of understand the methodology behind like what is too gory and what was permissible, because I don't know, you could make a case for different shots getting the VHS treatment, but
and it's not consistent,
it really is.
Not certain shots you do see some stuff that's like whoa, and certain shots it's like, oh well, they obviously edited this.
I mean, one of the first shots of the movie during like the opening narration, after you're seeing like space and some stars, it's like
literally the first
this person like exploding from radiation, and it's just horrible. I've got to say, like I knew like of Fist of the North Star. I'm definitely the total noob when it comes to this, but and so I was preparing for violence, but I guess I was not not fully prepared. And something happened, and I don't know exactly what moment it was, where the violence just became like so disgusting for me that it was like almost having like this like vomit reflex.
No way.
Wow.
For a lot of the movie, yeah, where it was like,
Whoa.
oh wow, like okay, yeah.
We traumatized you with this film.
No, it's good.
It's a good trauma.
I'll never be the same.
It's a good trauma. Yeah, that totally exists.
Oh man,
that will not hold up in court. You've ruined a person. Great job, Heroes 3.
Actually, right around this time, when it comes to video games, the latest Mortal Kombat is coming out, and I would say that it's very similar to this thing where Fist of the North Star is, like we were saying, it's super violent, but it's also kind of like Looney Tunes in how the violence
it's like
happens.
a particular kind of like gross where it's like the way you're like interacting with flesh is just like, why are you that's so
funny you should say that, because fun bit of trivia. Okay, so the main thing is that there's the Fist of the North Star manga, then there was the anime, and the thing is that well, unfortunately, America, we didn't get a whole lot of the good stuff. That went to like Europe and and South America. Fist of the North Star was broadcast on television in France. However, because the violence was so crazy, in order to get it past censors, they had to kind of dub it as if it was a comedy.
Oh, that's right.
So the dub is super over the top. It also is the best theme song ever, which I hope to God in post you add it right here. Either way, yeah, it's just so insane, and I think this movie kind of drives that home. But it's so funny because it's just like the manga and the anime are very much tamer than what we get in this movie.
Yeah, because seeing stuff in motion's way different than seeing a person's head explode and there's a big shot of blood out on a page that's in black and white.
Yeah.
Is a lot different than seeing it in motion and, like going full on one's 24 frames a second.
It's like watching was it like Nightmare on Elm Street versus watching Hellraiser? It's like total whiplash.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Mm-hmm. But the anime itself is also, even in Japan, the anime is like all of the explosion stuff happen in like these kind of silhouettes that are like these like white silhouettes. And it's still like it's still disturbing in a different way. It's just not quite as graphic,
right?
But it's still like you're still seeing the person's head explode. It's just you don't see it explode.
Right?
Yeah. I think for me it was more of the things that like defy any kind of like biology or physics. It was like the exaggeration of like explosions and blood and stuff. It was like I'm totally on board for that, but there's just like a weird manipulation of like flesh and organs and stuff that I can't explain. Even thinking about it now, I'm just like,
there's
so
some
gross.
Pure body horror in this movie, like straight up body horror.
Yeah,
and I don't know if we want to go into that just yet, but
we'll get into it. Yeah,
we'll get there. We'll get there.
The thing that I wanted to really push is that, and one of the things that I really think makes me love Fist of the North Star so much is that it's like so serious and so melodramatic, but at the same time it's so absurd and so goofy in what happens.
Yeah, totally.
So you're like just watching Kenshiro walk through this world, and he's basically like this wall of death that anybody that encounters him is gonna die. That they're gonna die.
He calls himself the god of death a lot in the manga.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, you watch like Dragon Ball Z and it's like, when will Goku get there? It's basically, how fast will Kenshiro kill this dude?
Yeah. And not only that, but he's armed with this mythical martial arts style that has a million different techniques, and you're like, what's he gonna do and what's gonna happen to this guy and what's it gonna look like?
Yeah.
So
it's funny. It almost reminds me, like, it's obviously anime is kind of a parody of kind of animes like this, but it's almost like One Punch Man, where he goes up against someone. It's like, oh, he's just going to instantly destroy them. But that's the whole point of One Punch Man. And this one, it's like, oh, he's going to destroy this person in like 2 moves, no matter what. And this is dead serious.
Yeah. The thing that I think sets for me, Fist of the North Star above stuff like One Punch Man is because it's just taking itself so. It's like the Naked Gun, you know, like Leslie Nielsen in the Naked Gun is just playing things so straight that it makes it that much more funny. And Kenshiro is just like so serious and has this like hard line sense of morality where it's like anybody that does anything wrong and they're in his way they're gonna die. And he's the good guy, but at the same time you're like, dang, dude, like relax a little bit.
Well, that's the thing. And then you find out later that, oh, hey, guess what? All that angst he's been building up the entire series, it was his true superpower all along via the Musou Tensei.
So the secret to the ultimate technique in Fist of the North Star is sorrow.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And then the upside is you get a really awesome image song, like, you know, playing behind you as you do it, and then like often probably sung by yourself, is Akira Kamiya sing. When the Musou Tensei first showed up in the anime, like all of a sudden, like without going too much into spoilers, there are several characters who passed away throughout, who like they appear as ghosts behind him, and he starts doing the stance, and they're doing it like with him. And
it's really cool.
It's this great moment, and like this sad ballad is playing behind him, and it's like Kenshiro singing about Iria. And I you know, and again in post you'll play it here.
Mike. We'll just give it to Mike. Matthew, let Mike edit this podcast.
God, don't do that.
Be my guest.
But anyway,
it's cool. It's cool. Since you mentioned the music, we should talk about the music a little bit.
We have to.
So the music's
amazing.
I think it fits Fist of the North Star more than the TV show music does, because
that's fair. I love the anime music.
Oh yeah,
it's so corny.
I'm saying,
gosh, I love it. But no, continue.
From Love. Like I love that music, but I also feel like this kind of captures Fist of the North Star's like ethos more. So the composer of the film, his name is Katsuhisa Hattori, and there are 2 songs that are performed by Kodomo Band, and those songs are great. So the thing I like about these 2 songs is like you almost like with Heart of Madness you think of Kenshiro just walking, like it starts with this beat dun dun dun, and you just think of this desolation and Kenshiro in this like a post-apocalyptic landscape. I think it works so well, and it's very like 80s at the same time, you know, it like sounds really cool. And then the ballad at the end, Purple Eyes, is also kind of this like really nice like ballad, and it has that weight of that sadness that you get from just everything in Fist of the North Star. So
we should say in the English dub they actually pull the vocal out.
Which is weird, because earlier in the film we have the Heart of Madness or something like that, and that they play, which is kind of partially in English, partially not, but it's just weird that one they would keep.
Well, you have to keep that in though. I mean, it's like you'd be crazy not to. But like a lot of dubs at the time did tend to pull vocals out, if I remember correctly. It's like I thought that was like standard practice.
So this is like an early 90s English release, and actually it was released by Streamline Pictures, and
God rest their merry soul.
And it was actually produced by Carl Masek, who's this infamous figure in the anime world. He's the guy that brought out Robotech in America, and he started Harmony Gold, and that's like an ongoing like rights thing, right, Mike? With Macross and Robotech.
The short version is that Streamline Pictures, one of the first real studios for that front, for all the stuff that like, you know, people will throw at Carl Masek, like in terms of stiff dubbing, and then like Robotech, the philosophy that there has to be dialogue everywhere, every second, and every time, which we apparently found out later, that was not specifically him. That was something that people thought back then in, you know, around that time period, that kids would not pay attention unless there was dialogue at every possible moment, which is why you have your favorite kid shows that will not shut the hell up. But the thing is, like, Streamline did a lot of good. I mean, they did Vampire Hunter D. They did Lupin the Third.
Carnival.
Yeah, Robot Carnival, Akira, Lupin the Third, Mystery of Mamo, and a couple other stuff there. They were responsible for a lot of stuff back then. And the Harmony Gold thing is just a hot mess where they kind of just sat on the rights to Super Dimension Fortress Macross and just stayed there, even though they technically didn't have legal ownership. But just remember, folks, that March 14th, 2021 is when Harmony Gold f***s off and they lose the rights to Macross. I'm going to do this right now. Okay, Siri, how many days until March 14th, 2021? 690 days until Harmony Gold f***s off.
So 690 days until we get
until
we get a proper Super Dimension Fortress Macross release. And that's interesting that you say that, because in the dub, which I don't hate the dub for this. I was expecting to hate it, and I don't hate it. It's definitely
Streamline
very
does
of the
good
time.
work. I mean, they do quality work, and this was like a really solid dub.
It's a lot of the people from Robotech do voices in this. It's kind of funny looking at, like, I didn't recognize most of the voices in it, except for one that we'll talk about in a minute. But But a lot of the voices, and I didn't recognize, and I was looking through the credits and like, oh, all of these people did voices in Robotech.
Yeah. I think for me, the dub, it's fine, but I think that they don't get what I thought was fun about Fist of the North Star. They think it's like serious and like, where the Japanese like voice actors, you can tell that, like, when a guy dies in the Japanese, when they say like goofy stuff and it's like a joke. And, in the American one, they're like,
screaming for their lives.
Yeah, it's almost like it makes everything like even more morose than it needs to be sometimes.
And also, like you're listening, saying before, but Akira Kamiya, the voice actor for Kenshiro, he has such a unique voice that you can't really do in English. Like it's one of those voices.
Few people have tried, and like I think only 2 people have ever nailed it. Like the guy playing him in the most recent Fist of the North Star game, the Lost Paradise, like nailed it perfectly.
If you don't want to die, walk away.
I think before that there was like somebody from, I think it was the new Fist of the North Star or whatever, came pretty damn close. But yeah, the thing is you have to essentially sound like you are having the worst day ever, and yet you are still having to show up in a suit and tie at 7 o'clock in the morning and just put up with everyone's bullshit. That's
now
really the best direction.
Again, total noob, but did Akira Kamiya, did he go on to voice Kenshiro through the animes as well?
Well, because this was a carryover. Okay. So pretty much everyone from the movie was in the Fist of the North Star TV series.
Wow.
So yeah, and that was like 100 and God, how many episodes was that? Like 190 something?
Lot.
Yeah, and fun fact, Akira Kamiya, unfortunately, when it comes to those screaming roles, dude can't do them anymore. After years of damage. So
oh no.
Yeah, that's why he retired. And also fun fact, apparently I found out that Tomokazu
still
Seiki
with us though, 72 years old.
Yeah, like Tomokazu Seiki, another well-known voice actor, apparently is a chain smoker, and also that's why he doesn't do a lot of hot-blooded roles anymore.
Oh man,
which is a damn shame, because like I was hoping he'd show up back for like all of Super Robot Wars T, which is out right now on PS4, Nintendo Switch.
All right.
Whoa. I mean, we are talking about Akira Kamiya, but we should also mention Rei's voice actor in the Japanese version, Kaneto Shiozawa.
God rest his. Okay, he's a guy who like I would like pay middleman fees just to buy like a tape of him reading the phone book. Like that is how much I love his voice.
Yeah, he's really cool.
He's like this very smooth, like haunting quality to him, and he is like one of the best voice actors like of this time period. And if you have him in something, you're like, oh shit, I need to pay attention to him.
Yeah, he's really cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Rei is like one of his most iconic roles, and never mind that Rei is also one of my favorite characters, one of my top 3.
Yeah, he's great. He's so cool. Let's see, what else can we mention before we jump into this thing?
Yeah. So now, like,
I think it's everything, isn't it?
If I understand it correctly, like the movie is basically taking a lot of the elements from the manga, but kind of like reinterpreting them into their own.
It takes a lot of the major beats. So like, so like, I mean, it encompasses like, I want to say it gets to like the good midway point, but by that point, I don't think the manga had really. Oh no, well, Hokuto no Ken 2 had started by that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like it would have covered to the end of that, but it still doesn't have like a finite resolution, and a lot of the crazy shit doesn't really happen, which is a damn shame because I still want to see like a fully rendered like Jews of the Cloud battle again, but we'll never get that.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they skip over major stuff. I mean, just for the sake of time. I think around this era, actually, still every once in a while you'll see they're basically compilation films based on anime. So the Gundam films, original Gundam, are like this, where they take the long story and kind of squish it down as much as they can.
With like even new animation and stuff like that.
Yeah. Even Akira, Akira's based off of the manga, and it honestly only really captures a lot of
very compressed compared to
Isn't
the
it like the
manga.
first like 3 volumes or something like that?
It's not even that. I think it's like most of the first volume, and it was a very
it's a common thing.
It's a very common thing that happened in Japan, and it still happens every once in a while. Like with Evangelion, there's the rebuild films, which are kind of like that, actually kind of do their own thing and take a twist on it, but it still happens with some major shows, but it's not as common as it used to. So I think it's kind of cool. It's like a more digestible way to experience the story, but you do lose a lot.
A lot of those were done too because like what was it, Japan at the time, like home video was just becoming a thing. So like when a show ended, unless you like found a way to capture episodes or something like that, you were SOL unless there was a rerun. So that's for like another purpose for those compilation films. I mean, like a lot of the Dragon Ball ones too were like that.
Oh right, yes,
yeah,
the original Dragon Ball film.
Oh yeah, those which were a lot of fun in their own right. But with like This is the North Star, it's just like let's just take whatever we can, but also let's promote the hell out of it. And like the practice today is more like we'll do that, but we'll do it in live action for some bizarre reason. At the same time, there's also a TV anime. Which is so bizarre because they did that for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as well recently, where it's like part 4 was airing at the same time, and they're like, let's get Takashi Miike and let's announce the first part of a 3-part trilogy on, part 4 for some bizarre reason, and then that flopped. But,
that's weird.
Yeah, but yeah, so that practice, it kind of exists today, but much more convoluted.
But yeah, that's where we're at with Fist of the North Star. I think these are kind of grand swaths of information that we've given you, but
pretty much. Grand Swath is also the name of my punk rock band, but I digest.
Nice.
Grand Swath sounds like a stand from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah.
Give me 10 minutes, I'll come up with powers. But anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, so with all that said, let's dive into the movie itself. But first, let's take a look at the back of the VHS.
The year is 1990X. The world as we know it is gone. Burned away in nuclear fire. Bandits and warlords rule over a new wasteland, where only the strong survive. This new world is on the verge of complete destruction. The only hope left for mankind is to find a hero. To return love and justice to the land. The last wielder of the deadly assassin martial art known as Hokuto Shinken, the Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro, has revived.
お前はもう死んでいる
With 7 scars on his chest, Kenshiro's anger explodes in his quest for justice. An epic assault on the senses. Tense and exciting battles every 10 minutes, with powerful animation that will burst through your screen. The great science fiction martial arts epic, Hokuto no Ken, Fist of the North Star.
北斗の掟は俺が守る
All right, so the story of this movie is pretty straightforward, I'd say. It's, it's like most Fist of the North Star things. It's Ken wants Yuria. Shin has Yuria. He goes and kills a bunch of people.
Boy meets girl. Boy gets girl stolen.
Yeah.
Boy gets stabbed in the chest several times in the shape of the Big Dipper. Boy gets left in a ditch. That's really it. It's a classic tale.
Pretty sure Shakespeare wrote that. So.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Heroes 3 and the martial arts, the kung fu movie side of things, it's really like, different martial arts styles clashing, and the drama that comes with, that. And because like Yuria, they don't play it up as much in this film, but she represents the southern style, and Kenshiro's like the North Star, the northern style. And they're kind of like this, like, I don't know, it's almost like a Romeo and Juliet, I guess. It's like,
gotcha. Yeah, it's like these two families shouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, and they say like, maybe this is something that could be good for like the two styles, but it's also like northern and southern shouldn't fight each other. But at the beginning of the film, you've got Shin, who's one of the Nanto generals. He wants Yuria. He's had eyes on Yuria. And we should say, like, this is very Mad Max. So we're in the post-apocalypse.
Mad Max meets Enter the Dragon meets
right.
Wuxia. It's crazy.
Meets
just
Frank
like,
Frazetta.
Yeah. Just with these Ip Man films that we've covered, I would say similarly that we wouldn't know about Fist of the North Star if it wasn't for Bruce Lee, right? Because like Kenshiro is basically like, he looks like Sylvester Stallone. He also looks like Mad Max, but he also is very Bruce Lee in all of his actions.
Right.
He does, all of the attacks have the "Watch out!"
And Kenshiro is kind of he is the successor to the Hokuto Shinken style, the Fist of the North Star style, and that comes with it also like very kung fu movie drama where it's like I wanted, there are three brothers that they show in the film. In the manga, there's another brother that I love that doesn't even show up in here. But
Anime Jesus.
Yeah, he's the best. Toki's one of the brothers. He doesn't get any time in this film, but he's super cool. And the three brothers kind of like have this fight over, Kenshiro being the successor, and one of the older brothers, his name is Raoul, and he's not happy with that, and he confronts his master, and blood is shed because of that. And that's like another kind of driving force in the film. And but the scene here with Shin and Yuria and Ken like really sets you up for what you're gonna be seeing in the rest of the movie, because
totally.
You get a surprisingly violent encounter. It starts off as kind of your typical kung fu stuff where they're jump kicking, and actually, like, I should say, the character designs are super cool. The guy that did the character designs is the same dude that did the designs for the TV series. His name is Masami Suda, and that dude's like
amazing,
a legend.
I mean, you can see how influential these designs and even costumes and everything really were on anime, and definitely like video game characterizations and stuff. One thing that I really loved is how much crossover there was from like the manga and like comic sort of art style. Like there's so much cross hatching and stuff on the characters, even on their faces, which I feel like the line even like a couple years from this point on, you don't really see that all that much, where there's like such heavy like almost like comic book cross hatching and stuff. But it is really cool.
Absolutely gorgeous work.
It rules. So Shin basically wins this encounter against Kenshiro, and he's gonna capture Yuria, and like his like demand to her is he's got Kenshiro like held by his goons, and he uses his hand to create a scar on his chest in the shape of the Big Dipper, which represents the Hokuto, like the Hokuto Shinken style. And he's basically saying like he wants her to confess.
And by creating a scar, I mean he's just pushing his index finger like
just
deep
right
into his flesh.
In there.
Which I don't think
right
that works like biologically, but it looks really cool.
I mean, if you really, really, really believe in it, anything is possible.
That's true. But this is something that is literally straight from the manga and straight in the anime. This is like one episode of the anime is a flashback just doing this scene. And
they just revisit over and over and over.
Yeah. Look, they paid a lot for that animation. They're going to use it.
But
Oh, so are you saying they even like recycle the animation from the movie?
No,
they
the movie
don't.
came out after, after
Right.
that fact.
Everything is reanimated for the film.
Yeah.
There's nothing
gotcha.
reused. What you get after this is two of the other Hokuto Shinken brothers, Jaggy and Rao, are kind of observing this, and actually Jaggy ends up throwing Kenshiro off a cliff, and there's like a cool moment of like background animation.
That animation
usually
is wild.
Yeah, usually backgrounds are like kind of these painted static like things, but yeah, there's some ambitious animation here. I think sometimes it's not as cool as it could be, but I think it's really cool for the time that it came out. The other thing that I can say that's kind of an important part of the film is that Yuria kind of has this like bag of seeds that kind of end up representing like the hope of humanity, because we're in this post-apocalypse and everything's desolate, and there's some really like cool like imagery in this film, like the city backdrops. Like I think one of the most iconic images I can think of is seeing a skyscraper with an oil tanker shoved through it like a sword. That looks so cool. I don't care how absurd that is, it just looks amazing. So she's got these seeds, and like she drops them as she's getting carried away, and Kenshiro grabs those. And then later in the film you'll see that one of the other characters, her name is Lynn, a young girl, she ends up really representing this hope that I was talking about. So it's kind of like Kenshiro and Lynn have this kind of almost like a psychic rapport, a link, where whenever she's in danger, it's like almost a signal to Kenshiro, and he'll show up like out of nowhere to save her. And he's like very protective of her, kind of realizing that, if I can keep her alive and if I can help her protect this plant, it means a lot for the future of humanity.
And we see this, the next scene we get introduced to kind of our primary side characters, Lin and Bat. And the way they're introduced is this is very Mad Maxy, where Bat's driving in this like kind of dune buggy thing, getting chased by these goons on motorcycles, which is like that straight up out of Mad Max Road Warrior. And the animation here is crazy. Like the animation of him driving through the city, and like it's like panning through the city, and like the background's completely animated as they're driving.
Well, and then
when
he's driving in the skyscraper and the floor like falls out.
That scene's gorgeous.
And then it's just kind of stunning.
It's always cool to see these moments of background animation, and like at the time, like this was like pretty like top of the game. Now I think like, man, in '88 with Akira, you can't really compare Akira to this, because Akira literally cost like $1 gajillion to make.
Well, between that and like
literally,
the pre-scoring, oh my god, yeah.
So after that, these kind of thugs who are from the manga, they're from the Zed like gang.
Yeah,
there's a Lord Zed that will show up shortly. They're trying to pick up. Yeah, they're trying to steal stuff because everybody's like a scavenger, everybody's a vulture, and it's very apparent that like the strong are the ones that just can survive, and everyone else is kind of treated like cattle. They kill people left and right, and I like that they make a point to show when they're killing people that they don't care about jewelry or money.
Yeah,
they just care about like food and water. Or women also. Yeah, women are not treated very well in this post-apocalypse.
Not at all whatso goddamn ever.
And especially right here, you get this scene where the Zed thugs see Lynn and she's trying to fight back, and the dude just like straight up was trying to step on her and crush her.
Yeah, and like her entire body under his foot. It's
that's the other thing I really like, is that they play with scale a lot. And at first you might watch it and you're like, oh, they totally messed that up. But I think stylistically it really works, because when you see Kenshiro fighting somebody and they look like a mountain in front of him and he just destroys them, it just looks way cooler that way.
Well, I think that again goes to the opening fight, and it's so important in establishing the tone. And part of the tone is that it's like, everything that you're seeing kind of like physicalized is some kind of like exaggeration. Like there's something expressive or almost like metaphoric to it. So it's like, Yeah, I don't know. I think like you're almost ready for proportions to like flux, or you're not looking at it as like a nature documentary or something.
Yeah, it's almost
totally.
like a manifestation of like ego at times. I mean, even in the manga.
Yeah, totally.
Like, yeah,
I like that a lot too.
Yeah, it just I think that's the way I've always kind of interpreted it. Like any sort of inconsistency, it's just like, okay, this is just his aura, his presence. He's just that massive. And then he's just brought down to size a couple panels later.
So tell me, Mike, how do you interpret Kenshiro showing up like covered in a layer of rocks? What is that?
The most metal thing that has ever happened in ever. No. Okay. So yeah, basically Kenshiro makes like the best appearance ever. Like one of the best introductions ever. This side of the G.I. Joe Real American Hero movie. With jetpacks. Dude just shows up covered completely in rock because he responds to the psychic cry, and just there's just this outer shell of rock that he just walks out of, and then like
and
just keeps
smashing
walking.
Skyscrapers as
a
he's
skyscraper
walking towards them.
falls on top of him, and he just walks right through it like nothing ever happened, and it's just like. He's just mad.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of interpret it because this is the first time that you see Kenshiro after what you assume is like a grisly death. And he was like not only cut and bruised in so many ways where it seemed like he like bled out completely, but then he's thrown down this rocky cliff that is like 20 miles tall or something. So it's like I almost took the rocks as like, oh yeah, he was like so buried down in that cavern or whatever, but I also don't know what I'm talking about. But I somehow
I like
it with
I mean
like where we last saw him or whatever.
I mean, I figure like if anything, maybe it's like a key type thing, like tangent time. There's like that one story in Blackjack where like the scalpel gets lost inside of him, and they find it years later, and it's like I think a calcium has surrounded it. Maybe it's maybe it's like that, but it's like with key or something. So like he just ends up so far in the rock that the key just like automatically like preserves him. And when he's just like coming out of it, maybe he just does not feel pain at all whatsoever. And he's operating on like autopilot mode, which is just pure sorrow and rage that he just was like, oh yeah, there's the rest of the world here. Let's go kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think whatever it is, just seeing him like that, how strong he is right away. The other thing I like about Kenshiro is like he literally, it's like I said, he just walks in a line wherever he goes. He doesn't like take
the shortest
elevator.
distance between two
and
paths,
just like waves his fist and people fall. Yeah.
And when he first encounters these thugs after they're trying to injure Lin and Bat, that's really how he takes them out. He just grabs one guy by the head and squeezes it to a pulp, and then he just kind of raises his limbs left and right, and everybody just explodes.
Dies.
What's great is right before the guy that he squeezes the head of just shot him with a crossbow, and he just pulls it out and throws it behind him. And there's this amazing shot that's literally just straight from the manga where Kin is holding his hand out and there's blood dripping from it as like the guy falls to the ground. It's such a cool shot. And he also has a sick beard.
Yeah, do we want to talk about the guy who like gets thrown on the ground and his head explodes his entire body upwards? Can we address that for a moment?
That's Looney Tunes.
That's like
I saw that on Mythbusters, and they were able to recreate it.
Nice.
The Fist of the North Star special edition.
Although I will say, since there's no other time that I'll be able to say this, I was kind of doing some reading through the manga, and one of my favorite crazy kill that he does that I read in the manga is there's a guy who's like has this like razor wire, and he's like chopping all these people in half.
Oh yeah.
And so he uses the pressure points to make the guy wrap the razor wire around his own head, and then his muscles to like snap and cut his own head off.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the great thing about Hokuto Shinken too, is it serves a narrative purpose for every villain. There's another villain that I think he hits a pressure point that just makes him walk backwards off of a cliff.
Wasn't that the fake?
That's
Toki?
Amoeba.
Yeah, the Amoeba. Yeah, the fake Toki. That's right.
Yeah, right. It's these like horrible narrative punishments.
Yeah,
it's just so absurd. Like you can't take it serious because it's like just so dumb and weird. Like, this is a joke.
And all the
mean,
people that
yeah.
he does it to are like the most comically evil people you could imagine. And so,
Right.
like, this person's literally going to crush a little girl who has seeds. And then he does all these horrible things where you're like, yeah, they kind of deserves it, I guess.
I mean, if you're
Yeah,
coming in
and
from
then-
like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I mean, which is pretty much borrowing a lot of notes from Fist of the North Star.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like those like crazy moments where it's like, it's okay, I turned into a butterfly just so I could like replace a part of my organ so I can keep my body alive, just so I can beat you up because you punched my friend because he stepped in line ahead of you. You know,
Yes.
like it's that type of logic, but it's so funny because for however insane it is, there are still parts of like Fist of the North Star, like as a whole, that will still get me pretty choked up. Like,
Yeah, it's so dumb, and it's at the same time it's so melodramatic, and it's like so like hot-blooded, like manly, like melodrama, like
Or at
like-
least it registers to all of us as manly.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
But
oh
it-
yeah, man, that's
I love it. It's so
Yeah.
stupid and great and dumb and awesome at the same time. Like the following scene, so Zed shows up, Lord Zed, and he's like, "Oh, like we're gonna kill this village, and we're just gonna take their stuff." And
with enough muscle detail that you pretty much see where half of the budget went.
yeah, right. And the tones, like the coloring tones on all these like gang dudes that are just gonna get mopped. Like everyone's drawn so well. But yeah, so he grabs Lynn and he's gonna like rip her head off. And like she does her like psychic scream. And then Kenshiro wakes up. He's laying on a table. He wakes up and he just springs up like a board and the table explodes.
And then like the door explodes, and it's like he's walking in regular speed, and like
And the door's
the pieces of the door are
slow
still
motion.
fliggly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
And,
good.
Yeah, so the next absurd thing is that, you know, Lord Zed's threatening this town, and Kenshiro runs up and he sees what's going on, and he kicks like a concrete chunk right into his mouth.
Yeah.
And the way Zed reacts is like, who did this? You know, like kind of like this goofy Looney Tunes, like, who threw concrete in my mouth? Right?
Who saw that coming? I mean, where'd that come from?
Yeah, and Kenshiro's walking towards him, and they pull off his cloak, and you see who he is, and they're like, "Oh, you're that guy." And Kenshiro like does the thing that you're waiting for him to do.
Yeah, he's just casually walking towards him and just punching people who keep exploding all over the place.
Yeah, and one of his goons gets flown like flat onto Lord Zed, like just like perfectly placed, and he explodes on his chest. You're like, what the hell? And that's one of the moments where I think it's like they didn't censor.
Yeah,
that.
they didn't
Like,
censor that.
Oh no,
It's-
there's a lot they did not.
yeah.
So Kenshiro does the Hokuto Hyakuretsuken, the
Yeah.
you know what everybody
Yeah.
wants him to do. And this is the moment where you hear
The most famous line of that. Like, people that don't know Fist of the North Star know this line.
Roses are
Yeah, I
red,
think-
violets are blue.
Yeah.
Omae wa mou shinderu.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
The,
it's
you
great
are already
because
dead.
they like letterbox frame when he says that. That's how important it
Yeah.
is. It's great. And yeah, then Lord Zed explodes. So on to the next guy.
Oh, do we have to talk about the lost Fist of the North Star art of jacket reconstruction?
Oh, that's true. He goes to the same tailor as the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
every
basi-
time,
Imagine Ken just has a closet full of the identical blue jacket and shoulder pad things.
Oh, I just
Sure,
assume it's like
especially-
a level high above the greatest echelon of like the Hokuto Shinken technique.
Oh,
like-
yeah.
Where like you strike a pressure point and your clothing just like automatically reassembles on you,
Mhm. He uses the pressure points to put his clothes back together.
or he hits the jacket and pressure points, and that it forces it to reassemble.
it's perfect.
That's a cool thing too. Is that it's an awesome thing that a lot of really great anime does, where there's really cool theming. Where the thing, like the whole thing that he does, the Hokuto Shinken, is, you know, pressure points cause all these crazy explosions to happen from people's bodies. But he can also do like good stuff with it too, which is really cool. So he uses it to get Lynn to speak again because she had been mute up to this point. And someone else later uses it to like kind of reassemble themselves whenever Ken is trying to kill them, which
one
I
of
just
the
think
best moments.
it's just such a cool thing where it's like, oh, it's consistent within the world, this crazy, kung fu magic that he's doing.
Right.
You almost could see it being like a Wong Fei Hung, Po Chi Lam like kind of deal where Kenshiro could have like a hospital where he just helps people, but instead he walks across the earth and kills everyone.
Well, that's what Toki is. He's the antithesis of that.
Exactly. Let's move on to I want to move on to Rei.
Well,
So
that's
we should
what I was
talk-
about to say. That's literally the next scene is we get introduced to Rei, who's kind of the main not side character, because he's on the same level as Ken. Like,
He starts out as a rival and then becomes his best friend.
Yeah. He animes it. He starts off as the rival and becomes the best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rei is of the Nanto Suichu. Wow, I did it. Okay, Rei is of the Nanto Suichoken style.
There you go.
Which is the southern style.
Yeah.
And the thing that's cool about this is that they describe Hokuto Shinken as destroying the inside of your body outward, and the Nanto style that Rei uses is destroying the outward inward. So basically how they visualize this is that his fingers are like lasers and they slice up everything with pure efficiency. And in this film like this, I think this was probably the most excited the animators were.
Oh, because like the most creative stuff happens with those techniques, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Like all the
And you
slow-mo posing with the laser. It's like I don't know, like a laser light show at the planetarium or something.
It is. And how we encounter him is that he's kind of like setting traps for thugs because he's trying to find information on his sister that's been kidnapped. And what he's doing is he travels the earth kind of shrouded, and he kind of has the form of a woman. So naturally any of these like thugs are gonna try and capture them. And the thing that I love about this is when he reveals himself, he's describing his style, and you see him kind of tracing the air, and they follow it with like a special animation effect line, and he actually does the kanji for the symbol of woman as he's saying it.
Oh,
and
cool.
yeah, it looks really cool. And he's fighting this like dumb thug that kind of looks like a clown. And this is the moment that I was talking about with Mike's action figure. So what happens here is that the thug rushes at Rei, and they kind of do this kind of ninja like swap where they run at each other and end up on the opposite sides of each other. And what ends up happening though is that Rei had sliced off the dude's hand, and he's like, "Hey, you
dropped these." He throws his own arms back at him.
So what I did is
right.
I had the toy, and I ran past Mike, and I'm like, "Hey, you drop this," and I threw the action figure at him.
Which best part of the whole
stupid.
thing? Best part of the whole thing. The guy who got me into Fist of the North Star, our friend Luis, was in the room at the same time, and dude died of laughter, like because he knew what was coming.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh god,
so stupid.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you for indulging me on that dumb story.
No, the funny thing is, I'm happy you told it because I would have told it if you didn't.
It would have been like 30 minutes longer.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, there you go. You're welcome.
Nice. So now we see Rei, the formidable rival, and what his deal is like I said, he's trying to find his sister, and what he knows is that it was a man with 7 scars that stole her. But what you end up finding out is that Jaggy, one of the other brothers, the other Hokuto Shinken brothers, is kind of spreading these lies that he's like Kenshiro of Hokuto Shinken, and he's letting everybody know that he has these scars. So they're kind of besmirching his name across the wastelands. When he ends up in this town where the thugs are kind of touting this, Kenshiro also shows up. So Kenshiro sees the statue of Jaggy with the 7 scars, and he's like, "Oh, this is Jaggy," and he destroys it, and it looks badass. I love the animation here when he does that. And then him and Rei encounter each other, so they kind of, it's like an uneasy alliance at first. They kind of speed things up in the movie for the sake of time.
Oh yeah, because in the original like storyline, like he doesn't reveal that he has 7 scars until like well after their introduction arc together.
Yeah.
Nice.
And yeah, they don't really like each other for a while. But in here, they're kind of united pretty quickly. But you also get this amazingly animated sequence of Ray just tearing up the goons. And
a lot of VHS shots for that.
Yeah, we get a lot of that. But even still, it's just like shockingly violent seeing the anatomy of all of this violence. And it's literally anatomy because you're seeing like the insides of all of these characters.
Just bits and pieces of people flying everywhere.
Yeah.
He does it so casually. He just kind of fling his hands back and forth as people are just being chopped in half and in like 10 different pieces.
You know, Kenshiro could have like a hospital healing people up. Like Ray could have like a great butcher shop where he's just slicing food up for people.
Can we write this AU story where it's just like they're all in a small town?
The most
and, like,
boring fan fiction in the world.
I don't know. Rao could still be a dick and things could be interesting. It'd be like
for sure.
It'd be like the Fist or the Fist of the North Star equivalent of today's menu for Family, like that Fate's Day Night spinoff where everyone's just happy.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Short delay. Yeah, so basically it's like, hey, so we're just gonna have all these characters that were originally supposed to kill each other, but they're all happy, and like the main dude just cooks for all of them, and every like story is like a actual recipe you can do at home. Like that is
I like that.
That is literally the show, and it's actually pretty damn charming. Watch it now on Crunchyroll. Dang. Anyway.
Hey.
Oh man, what's going on, Mike?
What are you talking about? I'm totally
full
fine.
Chill mode. So
Marty would not have been traumatized by this version that we're creating right now.
No.
Yeah,
We
next week
create it just to,
week
like-
we're gonna go a little more wholesome. So
I mean, I could have still been traumatized by kind of like the unspoken tension between those characters.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so like I said, so Jaggy is kind of doing all of this stuff, and it turns out that Jaggy is the man that has captured Airi.
I'm sorry, you say Jackie is the man.
Oh no, I'm still going. Yeah, he's captured Airi, and you get a really cool flashback kind of showing how Jaggy ended up the way he is, because when you see Jaggy in the film, he's got this kind of motorcycle helmet on, and when he takes it off, you see that his head's all messed up. And what I really enjoy about this flashback is that it's all like POV animation from Jaggy's point of view.
Yeah.
It looks so cool.
he just pulls a gun on Ken, which I just think.
But yeah, Ken doesn't even really react. He's like, "What's with the gun?"
Yeah, he's like, "Hey, don't
he's
use
like-
guns. We use martial arts. Come on."
Winners don't use guns.
Yeah.
Anybody using a gun in Fist of the North Star is a bad guy.
Yeah.
Automatically.
No honor.
But yeah, what I like here is, and this is like this morality that I'm talking about with Kenshiro, where he has no like patience for Jaggy. Once he does this, he immediately uses like a killing technique on him to stop him from, using guns, basically.
I mean, like when you're pistol whipped, though, I mean, you kind of like, you have to do whatever it takes eventually.
Yeah, sure. Kill your own brother, right? I got you.
I mean,
Noted.
So, what Jaggy does is really cool, though. He uses his own pressure points, skill, like techniques to prevent his head from exploding. But from now on, he's kind of like this disfigured monster, and he has to wear that helmet. And I really like here, too, because one of his henchmen comes in while he's taking a nap, and he's like, oh, I'm going to take a peek at his face. And right when he looks at his face, he has like Marty's reaction when he was watching the film. And he's like,
I did identify with that henchman. I felt like, oh, that's me there on the screen. Representation matters.
Get the hell out.
Jaggy wakes up and he's like, oh, like, so you think I'm disgusting, huh? And he does this casual smack to him and the guy's head explodes. So there we go. Another one on the list of fatalities in the film.
If there's a drinking game, you should be at least 7 in by now.
You will die by the 50-minute mark.
So Kenshiro and Rei are making their way to find Jaggy, and they're delayed slightly because they encounter Mr. Hart. So
Oh,
Mr. Heart is like this gigantic mountain of a human being, and this is the first time where you see Kenshiro's Hokuto Shinken have a little bit of trouble. So whenever he attacks this guy, Heart is so like fat that it just absorbs all like the kinetic energy of a punch.
I think this is to where I definitely needed to take a break.
Oh yeah, no. After
Think
this
about
one,
like what.
holy shit!
what
Yeah,
I was
no,
seeing.
you needed
It's
to.
just- It's just, I mean, it's like undeniably creative, but it's just so gross.
It's pretty
like
gross.
why does your mind go there? Like, why is this? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Kenshiro's solution to this is to hit him even more. So what he does is he uses Hokuto Shinken to attack Heart, and he hardens his skin, and then he's able to strike him, and Mr. Heart explodes in a geyser of blood.
And he hit whenever he's punching him, it makes the fat like roll off to the side, so that he's able.
It's
to
like becomes like
get
a crater of like lard, and it's just like the most like hauntingly amazing thing until it explodes, and then you're like, well, I'm done with dinner.
It's great in the subtitle. He says, "My meat, my meat."
Yeah. and actually Heart dying, that was almost like a meme before there were memes. Like when he dies in the Japanese version, he says, which is kind of like a play on "it hurts," and that became like this really like ongoing like joke in like Japanese like anime culture for a long time.
Oh yeah, and it was like a whole thing where like throughout Fist of the North Star there were like little messages scattered throughout. It's like whenever Shigeru Chiba like dies at one point, he's like Shigeru Chiba, like so he's actually saying his name. And then fun fact, if you buy the day one special edition of Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise, you actually get a Hidebu sticker.
Perfect.
It is currently on my PS4. So
that's awesome. Actually, Mike gave me a copy of that game for Christmas. That's really cool.
Yeah, surprised you haven't done the same.
Yeah. But yeah, so after they beat Heart, they encounter Jaggy, and Jaggy actually holds Irie as like ransom, and
of course
there isn't a huge fight between Rei and Kenshiro, but like this is kind of one of the legendary fights actually, that is like, you know, the Nanto style versus the Hokuto Shinken style. It's too bad we didn't get like a really crazy fight, because that would be awesome. But
well, they did,
it's still,
yeah, because like in the original version, it's like a lot more intense, and it's like got one of the coolest payoffs, because like it's the same arc, but it's not so much Heart that's doing it. Instead, it's like a whole other gang. I mean, the same character shows up, but like much later in a different capacity. But it's basically like the two of them fight, they're evenly matched, and so the both of them are like, okay, we have no choice. One assumes a certain stance, and he's like, I assume you know what this means. So then Rei does a certain stance. They both go at each other, seemingly kill each other in the process. And it looks like, oh god, this is it, the manga's over. Well, it turns out that basically it was a signifier for a feint that would knock the both of them out and simulate death, so they could then get up and beat the shit out of everybody.
Yeah,
it is one of the best things ever.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like, hey, secret handshake of martial arts. Mr. Heart and his like gang are related to Shin in the manga. So this is another instance where they're kind of mushing different things together for the sake of the film. But yeah, you gotta fight Jaggy now, right? Like, so Jaggy and Kenshiro have like a face-off on the top of a skyscraper, and Jaggy's kind of like this I don't play by the rules fighter. So what he ends up doing is he kind of lights like an explosion on the top of the skyscraper. But of course, that's not going to defeat Kenshiro.
Of course not.
Well, especially not because he then tells Kenshiro that he's the one that killed their father. And that's like, you should know that that's just going to make Kenshiro so mad he'll walk through the flames and walk through a skyscraper to kill you. He's proven that he can do it.
Yeah, that's like the bit in Kill Bill Part 2 where Elle Driver's like, that's right, I killed your master, and I also did this. Now what? And then she gets her eye ripped out. And it's like, why would you say that? Why would you say that?
Another thing I really love about this fight is that Kenshiro does one of these very specific pressure point techniques where he's like, I hit your pressure point, so now you're gonna shoot yourself.
Yeah, and then he has to like push something in his neck to get him to stop doing it. That's a cool animation where he's holding the gun out and just pops back towards him.
He's like, puncturing holes in his arm to try to stop it. Yeah,
he's able to defeat them, and they get back to Irie. But of course, the thing that Ken's screaming at Jaggy as he's literally blood's pouring out of his head is he's trying to find where Yuria is, because that's his whole thing. And I'm trying to remember what happens. Or he tells him that Shin has him, right? That Shin has Yuria at this point.
Well, he also tells him that he basically motivated Shin, like going after him in the beginning of the story.
So he's kind of pulling the strings behind all of this, and he tells
kind of like I find it like a weird story beat, because it's like, oh well, then this should be kind of like this is the source of really all your anguish. Like this is maybe like your ultimate confrontation, but
that's what they kind of shifted around, because like Jaggy didn't happen until after Shin in the manga and the anime, and so because
that makes sense,
because he was much more tragic when he found out, because he's like, great, so now my friend is dead and my girlfriend is dead and it's your fault because you're a dumbass. I'm gonna make your head explode now.
Yeah, then the shirt flies off and you know what?
Exactly.
But right here, what happens is you just learn that Yuria is in the city of Southern Cross, and the city of Southern Cross is Shin's city that is basically a testimony to Yuria herself. So he's been just trying to make like the perfect life for her, but she's an empty shell without Kenshiro. And this is like the major encounter next. The other thing I really like is the trailer for the Fist of North Star movie. The Japanese trailer actually lists all the fight. Every fight in the movie is listed. So it's like, why people are coming to see this, just for like the fights. And actually, similar to that, the Street Fighter movie that we covered, the trailer for that also does the same thing, where it shows you,
that's cool.
Ryu versus Sagat and Bison versus Ken, all of these different encounters.
Did they show that in the
That's
trailer,
how important
or was that like in the programs?
It's in the trailer. You see it scroll, just almost similar to how they scroll them in the trailer. We'll add it to the episode notes too.
Okay.
So after a little bit here where we see Shin and Yuria, and Shin's doing his whole like, the world's horrible and you have to be with me and everything, we get introduced to we saw Rao at the very beginning of the movie, but now we get to see him in action, and he has this massive army of these look like G.I. Joe villains. Like they look like from Cobra.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I see that.
And just a billion times more violent. And he gets in a fight with this other guy who also has an army, Kaiba-Daio, right? Kaiba-Daio?
Yeah, Kiba-Daio,
rather.
Which means Fang. So he's like, his name is Lord Fang.
And it's good that you say that, because this is probably one of the most interesting things in the dub, is they call him Fang in the dub, and he is voiced by James Avery, which you might know as Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Listen, give up while you still can, or every one of you men shall die, I promise you.
Yeah, it's great.
And also, of course, Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which this is definitely a lot more of the Shredder voice than Uncle Phil. So
yeah, and it is one of the most gruesome fights of the entire movie that just barely gets censored.
Now I feel bad for Marty. What was this like for you, man?
Oh yeah, this must have been terrible.
No, I entered a different like state of mind, or different plane.
So no, we broke
for
Marty
like
great.
The last third of the movie. Yeah.
He went to his dark place. That's why.
No, I just fixated more on kind of like the center strip of flesh on dude's face, where it was like,
oh yeah, that's color. Great. Oh, remind me of that.
Oh, sorry.
That's like the thing that like, oh god, like even like it is still like the most intricately animated part of the movie. Like it is well done, but it is so graphic to the point that I get queasy just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Just oh god.
Yeah, he's marching through this army of henchmen as he's like turned his skin into like steel or something. And as every time he steps on someone, you just see all their intestines fall out of them, and it's just gruesome.
Well, and then there's like one soldier that's jumping up at him,
Oh,
and
and
he
he
just
just,
like
like,
lands in
swats
his
Yeah.
mouth, like you're like tossing your friend a peanut and seeing if they can.
Yeah, it's like
catch
that.
it
It's
or
like that
something.
painting of Kronos eating his kids, like where it's like just hanging out of his mouth.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Fist of the North Star is high
It
art,
is high
guys.
No, there. I did think that there was something like really kind of sickeningly beautiful about towards the end of that. There's this rain of blood.
Oh yeah,
that
where he's
they've
walking through
animated
everybody.
almost. Yeah, it's almost animated to be like confetti in a parade, and so it's like this like grisly death parade.
Oh yeah, that's right.
From like the blood that he's like wrenched out of all these
Grizzly
soldiers.
Death Parade was the working
Whoa.
title of Fist of the North Star.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a metal album
That
waiting to
makes
happen too.
That's
Yeah,
like a
Dude, you're-
Metalocalypse album more than a Death Clock album more than an actual metal
Yeah.
album. Oh, but this is the part that probably got me the most in terms of grossness. Is Rao is able to kill Kiba, and he like sends him flying into the distance, and we see that like his steel skin gets all cracked, and then his flesh is just like popping out through like the cracks
Oh
in
yeah.
the steel.
Yeah.
Ugh.
This is the worst. This is the worst.
That is the
movie.
worst one in the
Worst one in the
I love
movie,
it.
par none.
It's great.
Oh,
Yeah, it like gushes out in a column, like all through the cracks.
so it's like all the epidural layers and the muscle, and just like little chunks, like as if it's like going through like a Play-Doh grinder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's just
exactly.
it's so sick, and it's just like you applaud them, but you're just like
Well, I don't know, it's really amazing that this is all executed at the level it was, because like you can imagine one kind of mad twisted artist like having that sort of vision, but to corral like a whole team to like get behind that and execute it at what you have to argue is like such a high level, it's like that's kind of amazing.
guys, now hear me out on this one. We just I
No.
want to blow him up,
Yeah.
but I just want chunks of skin to come out of him. And I want it to just explode through. Now, the thing is, we're going to be spending a lot of the budget on it. I approve it. Like, there's just like the one guy who's just like, let's do it.
I was thinking, okay, but only if we get to do an upskirt shot later in the movie. Okay, fine.
It's like, it's okay, we can do
They
one boob
definitely
shot in
sneak that in
exchange.
there, yeah.
All right, fine. But I don't have to draw nipples. All right, fine.
It's such a bizarre shot too, because it's like they're trying to make it like this. I know it's skipping ahead, but they're trying to
not
make
that
it this
far ahead, so.
empowering thing of like, no, I'm not going to like wear your wedding dress or whatever. So it's like naturally, I'm just going to like strip it off.
I mean, it's the 80s,
that's-
so they have to
that's what
squeeze it
you
in
do,
somehow.
yeah.
It's kind of like the whole stupid thing in like the Guyver movie where it's like, oh hey, so where a show is just possessed by the first unit normally and is just wrapped around by alien stuff, it turns into a whole tentacle scene, and suddenly
Yeah.
she's naked for some weird reason. Like it's just
Right.
it's needlessly extra.
I have a feeling most we're kind of 2 for 2 on anime movies having unnecessary nudity scenes. So
All you need to do is just have like a checklist or like have like a bingo card and just go through like any major movie from the 80s, and it's like, okay, this nudity scene, check. Gruesome death, check.
Yeah.
Rockin' 80s power ballad for the finale, check.
check.
No, that's the free
Yeah.
that's the free space, because like everyone had that. Everyone
Right.
had that.
Yeah. Or like, yeah, gorgeous white snakian hair.
Yeah.
White Snakian.
I love
Ugh.
it.
Maybe that should
That's
be
a
the free
hashtag.
space.
That's our new
Oh,
hashtag.
man.
But yeah, this next scene is Yuria overhears that Kenshiro is alive, and that kind of revives her, will to live. And that's whenever she does this, she strips off the wedding dress and changes back into her older clothes, which I do kind of like, that whenever you see the older clothes on her, they kind of look more worn than they did at the very
Yeah.
beginning, which I thought was
That's
really
cool.
cool. That's a cool touch. But Shin kind of knows that his time is limited, because he sees like all of the smoke and the dust coming from Rao's army approaching here, and that leads to their kind of confrontation with many great evil laughs. There's a lot of good evil laughs in this movie, but Shin's probably my favorite evil laugher.
Oh yeah, it's super good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when Yuria's escaping, she runs into Rao, and Rao encounters Shin and says, "Hey, Yuri is with me now." And shortly after that, now Shin's gonna encounter Kenshiro. So what we see is that Kenshiro makes his way to Southern Cross, and he finds Shin waiting for him, and they have basically what Kenshiro thinks is their fateful encounter. And this is played a little differently than the manga too. And actually, Shin's death is kind of one of these like kind of iconic deaths in like anime culture, and it's a bit different in this movie.
It's also his finishing move in this is the North Star game from Arc System Works.
Yeah,
nice.
It's actually like a secret, like it's like an honorable death, like super move, where you kill yourself instead of dying from your opponent.
I won't die by your hand, Kenshiro! And then he just jumps, and then that's it.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty great. But the animation for this fight is super cool. And actually, there's some really funny, like, kind of Kenshiro standing still with fists flying around him. Where they kind of just slide the frame back and forth.
Yeah. It's funny where they spend a lot of money on the animation in this movie and then where they cheap out.
Yeah. But, I mean, at the same time, Shin's animation for his attacks looks so good. And I think Shin versus Kenshiro looks so iconic to me. Seeing like the long blonde hair, the white snakey in hair. But the fight isn't very long in the film, and what you see is that Shin is already like been basically mortally wounded by Rao, and when Kenshiro's fighting him, those injuries are revealed, and then he kind of tells Ken that she's gone, and that Rao is the guy that has her now. So in the manga, there's like this weird thing where Yuria's sitting in the middle of their fight, but what you find out is it's like a doll.
It's really
weird.
Like
a lifelike doll of Yuria.
Yeah, and they built up to that moment for the whole time, so you're like, oh god, she's just like, a shell of what she used to be, as you saw in the flashbacks. And then dude's just like, I will take her away from me, and then stabs her, and then you're like, oh shit, she's gone. And then that just adds more stakes to that final battle, because it's like, oh, Kenshiro now has nothing left to live for.
Yeah, and in the manga, you find out that Yuria jumped to her death, thinking that Kenshiro was dead.
Yeah.
So it's like, that melodrama is like turned way, way up.
And you're thinking that should just be the end of the manga, and it's like, nope, it's still going.
That's pretty dang early in the manga, too. Like, that's within the first volume.
Yeah, if you're going by the Master Edition, that's probably like by volume 2 or 3, I think.
Oh yeah, those I was looking into those. Like, there was actually a really cool digital release of the manga. Yeah, it was like a Kickstarter.
Right?
Where it was like this really cool. It looked like the shell of a manga, but when you opened it up, it was like a digital.
It reminded me of like those electronic books that they were pitching at the toy company in Big. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. That's funny.
Like, oh man, that would be so cool.
And you can still buy them now, but they're like $1,000 or something like that. Yeah. It's like ridiculous pricing, and it's the only way you can like read it in English without having to track down the remaining like Master Editions. Like, I'm only missing like volumes like 1 and like 6 and 7.
Dude, I was kicking myself because I participated in that Kickstarter, but I think it was like $250, and like right before it ended, like it got funded, and right before it ended, I was like, I don't want to spend that much, and then I canceled it, and now there's no way I can get that.
Oh, Carlos, no.
Yeah, I just was like, man, I thought it was really cool, but yeah, I missed out.
You done goofed.
Yeah, I did. Okay, well, anyways, following this, we're getting to Rao's city where Yuria's being kept. And actually here, there's a scene that actually was edited out, and you see a bit of it in this scene. One of Rao's henchmen he has a bullhorn, and there's people cheering like, Ken-O, Ken-O, because that's what he goes by, like the Fist King, Ken-O. And he grabs a guy by the head and pops his head with his fist. And you see bits of the scene, but it's edited away.
I was wondering because it cut to like the bad VHS quality, but then nothing happened. So I was like, oh, that's weird. But okay, that makes sense.
Right. There's a YouTube clip that has all of those edited clips in it, because apparently there was on the Italian VHS release, those were still included for some reason. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's really hard to track this information down. But whoever put that clip together extracted those from that, so you can see like some of the scenes that were edited. You can see them unedited. It's not everything, but it's something.
That's right. Yeah, it's like super hard to find that one now too. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the story was that I read and that I know from you, Mike, was that Toei said that, so once the film was released, it was deemed a little too violent, so they went ahead and made some edits, these VHS-looking color edits, and there was actually, what they said was there was a fire in one of their warehouses at Toei Animation, and the print was lost. So I couldn't confirm that anywhere. And
like prior to
I don't know the truth.
Yeah, prior to the recording of the podcast, we tried going into the Japanese Wikipedia page even, and then that didn't really have a whole lot of information.
Yeah,
which is a damn shame.
I mean, yeah, and Discotech, the same people that released that Street Fighter film that we talked about, you can get all of the original run of Fist of the North Star and the film. But even that, and I think what you're gonna see on Crunchyroll or on Amazon, those are lifted from these releases, and it still has this kind of color editing and this stuff. So I don't know if we'll
hopefully
ever see
someday
that.
someone finds. I imagine it was the negative that was destroyed in the fire, and there must be some other.
Yeah, there has to have been a print,
theatrical print.
Because
somewhere.
Because if they're doing that like effect, that was clearly edited on tape, and I think that was done for the home video. Because I'm sure the theatrical was,
it looks really bad.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because for me, I was kind of like, whenever I first saw, kind of violent stuff on like the internet, saw violent, clips from shows and stuff, it was from crappy VHS transfers. So in my mind, that's just what horribly violent stuff looks like whenever it's kind of scary, because it kind of freaked me out as a kid. So whenever I see it like this, is like, oh, that's like almost worse than if it was just the actual full on version. But maybe that's just me. But
no, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, there's kind of an authenticity with that. It just like feels like right on the mood.
Yeah, what it looked like to me when I first saw it was like it's some guy had wanted to show his friends this crazy cartoon that had this mad violence, and they just kept rewinding that same spot over and over again. So that spot was all messed up.
Just wear out the tape.
That's great.
Totally plausible.
Uh,
I could see that.
But yeah, so the next bit, Ray, Bot, and Lin kind of come to the town, and they are able to get there. They try to get Yuria out, but she ends up getting she isn't crucified, but she is on a cross, and hung up for everyone to see. She's not
on the way to being crucified.
Yeah, on the path. And Ray.
This is a little too soon, around Easter.
This will be out after Easter. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. But so Ray goes to fight Rao, and this is a really cool bit too, talking about the power ballads. This is when we get the song Heart of Madness plays, where we see Ken walking all moodily through the desert while they're fighting with just this music going, and that's always cool. That's that's when stuff's getting real in the anime, whenever the song with lyrics starts playing during the fight scene.
It's like, oh no.
Yeah, for sure.
See, what I was kind of wondering is there are shades of one of my favorite fights in Fist of the North Star with that Ray confrontation. And I just got to talk about it real quick. It's I mentioned a little earlier, there's one of my a couple of my favorite characters in the series. Ray is one of them, and the other one is a guy by the name of Jews of the Cloud. Now, okay, so Jews of the Cloud. Okay, he's the guy who's one of the Nanto generals, and he's actually a pretty good guy, and he kind of decides, I've got this mystical martial arts. I'm just going to create a harem. And so he goes around rescuing all these women from all these bandits or whatever, and he just lives it up in this palace. Everyone's having a good time, and the city pop music is playing in the background, and everyone's laughing or whatever. And so there's a whole plot line where you're like, okay, who's the final Nanto general? What that person shows up and is like, here's the deal. We need to make a transfer. You got to buy me some time. And he's like, look, I'm having the best time of my life. Why am I going to bother, protecting you? Nanto general reveals their identity. And on that precise moment, Juza just changes his tune and he's like, I will give you my life. So, and this is the reason why I wanted to bring this up. Dude decides to, in order to stop Rao, shows up in front of the army, starts some shit, gets Rao off his horse, steals the damn horse, runs off, and then proceeds to fight him. And then, like, it's going well. Like, it's like going well for him, but then of course he ends up, losing it. Or so you think, because then all of a sudden his body just springs back to life. And then proceeds to fight Rao some more until it just gives out. And you find out that it wasn't him fighting at that point. His body had just enough willpower because of the admiration for the final Nanto general that it just sprang back to life and went back into autopilot just to try and stop him. The upside, of course, is they bought enough time for the diversion. The downside is that because of the devotion to this, Rao pieces together the final identity of the Nanto general. So, like, just how the fight with Rei is structured, I can't help but to think of Juza. And I really wish he had made it in. But I know there's only so much you can do.
Right, because those Nanto, the Southern generals, there's like 4 characters that each kind of get their own like spotlight for a while. And yeah, the 5th general is somebody that we already know, and that isn't touched upon at all in here.
Not at all whatsoever.
And it's really cool. Just like Toki, like I was saying. So Toki's like one of the other Hokuto Shinken brothers, and he's like, he could have been like the best one, but he has radiation poisoning, so that kind of seals his fate. And actually, him and Rao have like a really, it's like the coolest fight.
It is so good.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I could talk about that, but I think that any fan of this, like, especially if you're coming into this, like, and maybe like, oh, I want to know about Fist of North Star, you should just read the manga and watch the show, because like you get a lot more out of it. This looks way cooler, but you lose a lot in the narrative.
This is more of a companion piece, if anything. It's kind of like, I mean, if you've already have the appreciation, this is like the best of compilation, and it's
gotcha.
The best of like remix, and it's pretty good in its own right. But yeah, like there's just some great moments within the comic and great moments within the anime that still top the movie.
So now in the film, we're getting the moment that Mike was talking about, where Rei is going to face against Rao, and Lin is kind of like, no, don't do it. And actually, there's a little Easter egg in the crowd in this scene. There's I took a screenshot and I also share this in the notes, but the director actually puts D from Vampire Hunter D in one of the crowd shots.
I remember this. That's right.
Yeah, it's in a shot where there's like an older lady like saying like, oh, we saw the flower, because one of that main general that is one under Rao, he's holding the little potted plant that Lin has, and they're kind of like who's responsible for this flower, basically like kind of crushing the last ounce of hope for humanity. And that's what Lin's gonna run forward, and Rei's like, I'll take care of it, but Rei is fated to die. So this is cool too, because Mike mentioned that Arc System Works. There's a fighting game about Hokuto no Ken that the people that made Guilty Gear made it, and it's actually really cool.
It's a fun game, but incredibly broken.
Yeah, broken as in it's imbalanced, but I think it's a lot of fun to play.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we've had a lot of fun playing it against each other. But Rei, the way that he gets like the fatal blow in this fight, that's actually a super move that Rao has in the game that you can do to Rei the same way. He like throws the cowl up into the air, and then he like kind of pokes him in the like chest. That's basically what it is, but it's like more dramatic in the film, obviously.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so Rei like takes out that general pretty easily. There's a moment that's really funny with that fight where the dude has like a kind of a Viking helmet, and in the horns of the Viking helmet, he has whips that he pulls and extends out, but it's like, where were those hiding if you're pulling them from the sides of your head? It's like, what is this?
Don't question it. I mean, like, dude, like, that's the guy from the Cassandra arc. So, I mean, Dude is just
Right.
made of whips at that point. That's just his thing.
Similar
you know?
question though. Where did he get a horse that big?
Lots and lots
cool.
of really awesome no, it's just the horse's radiation,
Okay.
radiation powers.
All right.
Oh,
It's a
there you
super
go.
I'll buy it.
radiation
I'll buy it.
horse.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's
And I like that
Dedicated
too.
horse.
Like Kokuo, like his horse is just as formidable as Rao is in a lot of ways. And one of the big things is Rao never gets off of his horse. Like he's so strong, nobody can make him get off the horse.
and if you do,
Isn't
it's a
there
huge
like
thing.
a thing? Isn't there a thing where like Kenshiro punches Kokuo? Like he punches the horse in the face.
Something like that,
I
yeah.
remember that.
Oh, that's what, look back at that. But I just remember like the most significant thing with Coco was Juza, like just basically like stealing him and running away with him, and
Yeah.
I died laughing the first time I saw that.
Yeah. But yeah, so Ray is fated to die. And that's where we get this insert song with Kenshiro making his way to the final fight between him and Rao. In the manga, Ray has a whole different thing in the manga too, because there's another character that doesn't even show up here. Her name is Mamiya, and they have kind of like this back and forth thing. And Ray ends up fighting another Nanto practitioner named Yuda, and that's really cool too. But
He has to get like a
those
power
are-
up in order to beat him, and that's where the white hair comes from, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and the injuries that he sustains from that fight are ultimately what kill him. And actually, it's really sad. He dies like in a flaming house. Like he like stays there to die. It's messed up.
It's so tragic.
Yeah.
Bringing back these horrible memories. God damn it, Carlos.
That's why we're here, man. It was really cool.
I know, but still.
So here's the thing that I always have with these, like Dragon Ball or like anything where there's everyone's so strong. Like, how do you visualize strength in a way that makes it so you feel that power, you feel that strength? Like in Dragon Ball, it's like, okay, you powered up to the next level, or you powered up to the next level, but there's no real impact. You know what I mean? Like, it has to turn into this abstraction. And in a way, this fight between Kenshiro and Rao is like abstraction.
It's definitely kind of a
because-
Dragon Ball fight. Like with people charging
there's
up
all
and
this-
auras around them and everything.
And lightning and buildings collapsing.
And to give you an idea,
So
like
it's-
up until this point, like Fist of the North Star didn't really do like laser beams or anything like that. It was very much like hard fighting. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't until like Fist of the North Star 2 that maybe they even started like dabbling with that. But this is just like
Gotcha.
sheer ego manifested, and I think
Yeah, that's a great way to
that's.
say
I mean, that's
it.
really
Yeah.
because it's not so much aura at this point than it is just very much like, okay, this is my rage, this is my ego, this is very much all of me coming at you right now at this moment, and it's just the sheer animosity between them. Like that's how strong it is by this point, because it's like everything in the movie is built up to this moment, and I think it's a hell of a thing to see. And, you know, there really hasn't been anything else like it in the series proper. And, I mean, I'm glad they don't really fly or anything, but it's still just like, you know, that's where you're like, okay, come on, really? But no, it's still like this crazy thing that happens, and I love it to death. But the only thing that sucks is, unfortunately, Yuria is still, hopped up on a cross and is just flying everywhere.
Yeah, that is a cool thing that it's not just the area directly around them that's floating up, but everything around them's floating up in the air, and you know, all the like the rubble from the city is floating up. They have to like try to get away to you know, not get flung up too far. And they do kind of fly in the air at this point, like just
and you just
a
like,
couple of
really?
punches, but then they get back down to earth.
Yeah. The movie just kind of like throws that at you, and you're just like, oh god, here we go. But then eventually it's like, okay, then he starts doing the punch blocking, and you're like, okay, I'm on board. Forget what I said. Just let's do this.
I do like the visual representation of the blue and the red energy. So it kind of helps like that. But it is kind of like Dragon Ball. And like, I don't know. I mean, I think this is the imagery we tie to Dragon Ball. But like, Fist of the North Star, like, to me, I love Fist of the North Star way more than Dragon Ball.
Very much
And
so, yeah.
Just, seeing like Rao and Kenshiro, like how they, like throughout the whole movie, you're barely moving to fight. They're so powerful, they just need to wave their hand, something.
Just like no wasted movement.
I think it's cool seeing them interact here. And I think it's really funny that even when he's like floating in the air, he's still on the horse.
It's like radiation.
It's more comfortable.
Yeah, radiation horse powers. I mean, he's really comfy. He can fly in the air, and the horse is that mad too because he's just been having this big muscular guy on him for like God knows how long. His back must be killing him.
And Kenshiro actually is able to make a tiny little nick on Rao's face, and that's the thing that signifies him being worthy to stand on the ground to fight him. So yeah, I think that's a really fun thing too. It's like so goofy and dumb,
and everyone's just exploding with blood at the end, like it's that scene from the Addams Family.
Yeah, no, it's kind of ridiculous that they're just covered in blood. Yeah, it's the great like kind of geysers going off. And I remember while I was scrubbing through the movie, I was thinking, what's all the red oh, that's blood. Okay. Because it almost doesn't look like blood, like out of context. It's just like this, almost like a red lights on them. There's so much blood.
You could see it almost being like the Shaw Brothers blood that we mentioned so many times.
It is almost that color,
very
like
much.
Slightly pink. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you just get them kind of just brawling. So like, it's this weird place where they're like, well, they have to fight each other, but they also what you find out is the narrative's like, well, we can't have them kill them. Like, we want to still have them around or something. Or it's really weird. They kind of paint themselves in a corner when it comes to the story.
I think they kind of just chicken out, to be honest. like no.
Yeah, I think
they,
so.
They were just like, I think they should have just stuck to their guns and they should have just had Kenshiro win it. Or
yeah, because Rao in the manga has like a really honorable death, actually. Like
one of the best deaths of the series.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Well, I think the bigger thing is that they just don't really establish Rao in this film as that significant of a character until kind of towards the end. And I mean, I'm just speaking as someone that has like no like foreknowledge of the series or these characters at all. Like it was, I've got to say, like pretty confusing, like just where the story went and who the final confrontation was between.
Very much so.
Like I was trying to like get myself there emotionally, but I didn't really get why it was happening, and it wasn't connected with like the more emotional hooks in the story.
See, that's why I think this was like very much
strange.
That remix mentality, because I feel like if you're a fan coming into it, a lot of the gaps make sense.
Sure.
And I feel like maybe that's...
I could totally see that.
Like, they structured it so that way, like, if you could rely on that in a pinch.
Right.
And like...
Or that's the audience you're playing to. And
exactly.
Sure,
yeah.
You're kind of banking on them already knowing stuff, which is not a valid strategy, I don't think. But I think Akira is a victim of this as well, where it's like... the narrative of the film is like, wow, like what's happening? Like, wait, towards the end of the movie, you're like, what's going on? And it looks great, but you're at the same time, you're kind of confused. So this kind of falls victim to that as well.
I mean, honestly, I'm that kind of guy that kind of likes the movie ending of Akira more so than the manga. I'm sorry, everybody. I know I'm letting everyone down.
That's all right.
But
no, it's fine. It's fine. That's for another time.
We'll repitch your voice so that it sounds like really low and unidentifiable, and
you'll
be protected.
Everybody, I don't really like the ending very much.
So the end of this fight has them. Well, okay, so there are actually two endings. There are alternate endings to this. So when the movie originally aired, what happens is Kenshiro and Rao have like this knockdown drag out fight, and actually Kenshiro is like knocked out, so he's laying down on the ground, and Rao is about to finish him off, and Lin shows up and pleads with him, and Rao actually has kind of an understanding with Lin where he kind of sees like the future. He sees the light in her, and he basically decides to leave and says, "Oh, Kenshiro will live on, and you're gonna be okay." Like, you know, this.
He tells her to like grow up or something.
Yeah, please grow up fast.
Please grow up fast.
It's like weird.
Can we have like the alternate ending, or like the AU where like, you know, she grows up and becomes like the next successor of the Fist of the North Star and like grows up to fight him? Because I'll watch that.
That'd be awesome.
That's what I was kind of.
Cool. And she's like, "Don't take my seed."
When I first saw. When I first saw Ray dressed up as the woman, I was like, oh, that'd be really awesome if there was a female like Hokuto Shinken master or something.
Nope.
I feel like the whole like physical strength doesn't really matter as much as like the pressure points thing. So I feel like it would totally work, but whatever.
Oh,
it's like an assassination.
Yeah, like a Wing Chun
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
like an
deal.
assassination thing. So like it would totally make sense for like a woman to be able to get that. And yeah, they never really do that because it's the 1980s and men with muscles.
Manly men.
But
yeah, so okay, but the alternate ending of the film is pretty much the same, but what they do is instead of Kenshiro being knocked out, he gets up and Raoh and Kenshiro are going to have like this one final strike and they're stopped in the middle of it by Lin. And then the end result of that is the same thing where Raoh ends up leaving. But the thing about that is that the print that you find from that is similar to the violent parts. It's from a different print, it looks like. So whenever you see that, the quality of the footage drops.
yeah, like a total shift.
Yeah.
And the streaming service versions that you see all have the version where Kenshiro's knocked out.
Right.
I have a bootleg DVD that I've had for like years, and that actually has like that ending where they're fighting each other.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I think it's
I'll have
based
to
off
share the YouTube clip because it was actually pretty good quality.
Oh, cool. Yeah, cool. The DVD I have is really bad quality, but it's that's that world of bootleg DVDs, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is that you can and Marty, I know you mentioned this before we recorded, but you can see that the character designs are slightly different. And my take on that is that Hokuto no Ken 2 was airing, and actually they kind of updated the character designs while that was airing, and it's done by an artist named Junichi Hayama, who's a dude I love. That dude is amazing.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, that shot of them kind of attacking each other, you can totally tell that these are like Junichi Hayama style character designs.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because then they do reuse some of the original theatrical footage. Actually,
they'll like
most
put
of the
like
scene is,
Kenshiro in the
the
corner,
original.
like they like add him to the corner of a shot.
Yeah, he's like in the foreground.
Like they remove
yeah.
him completely from like that last bit where they're confronting each other.
Yeah, totally.
But
where
the blood puddle's there, but it's like
yeah.
It's interesting.
That stuff.
I mean,
that's
and
fascinating
it makes
to me.
sense.
Like
Yeah.
the tiny things that got edited or changed, and you can still see like the fingerprints of what was originally there. I love stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much
the very
it.
Well, then the end credits sequences.
Oh yeah.
I almost want to say that was maybe my favorite part of the of the movie.
That's great.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
Just because like
Cool.
I've got to say it was like I was definitely really fascinated with the movie overall, but I don't think I necessarily made any kind of like real personal or emotional connection to anything.
fair.
But somehow the end credits with him kind of like walking through the forest and he's sort of seeing Yuria everywhere, but she's just like in his memory is
just out of reach.
That got me.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful.
really cool. And like I said, that song "Purple Eyes" is so cool and totally
it really
fits
is. Yeah.
like everything.
Yeah, and you need the vocal. It's like it's so good.
It's kind of when I was watching the dub one, it was kind of weird watching the same scene but without vocals. It just doesn't quite have the same emotional impact.
It's a bit more of an optimistic ending too, and I kind of appreciate that.
I did have a hunch that I was like, I don't know if Marty's gonna like this as much as the other stuff we do.
Oh no, I
glad-
don't want to say that. It was definitely it was like a shock to the system, which is
Yeah.
isn't,
You was
like,
shocked.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
You should. The joke he made at the end of the last episode is way worse. So
Oh yeah, that was.
Is that
really
just
bad.
precedent now? It's just
Bad jokes are always
yeah.
a precedent on this podcast.
that's a solid 5% of this podcast is just bad jokes. So
absolutely.
Yeah, totally. That's our checklist.
Yep.
But no, it's actually got me interested in like going back and reading the manga and stuff. So
Yeah, I would highly recommend.
Well,
that.
good luck finding
And
a
it
copy
is-
of it. No.
Yeah, it's
good luck
it's hard,
finding
but
a
seemed like at
legitimate
least,
copy
like-
of it.
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like there are a lot of like scans online. I don't know if those are not
Official.
or...
I can't officially comment on it, but unofficially,
You've heard of someone who knows someone who's
yeah
perused those things.
I mean, okay, listen though, like all of these kung fu movies that we saw, like, and why we're here right now, how many of these were bootlegs that we had to watch, right? Like VHS copies,
totally.
Copies of copies. Like that's where we got to
a re-edit of the Japanese DVD special edition bootleg with.
My take is if there is a way to legally do it, go for it. If you want to support what you like. But if you really want to find something and there isn't a venue for you to get to it, the right
anything
way,
goes.
Just do it. It's like, people aren't putting in the effort, so maybe, it's on them.
Really, it's their fault.
It's the children's fault.
The children who are wrong.
There is an interesting thing, though, especially when like talking about that era of the internet that we're kind of referring to, which is like when things were really starting to bubble up and we could actually use it as this resource to access art and culture and information from around the world. I honestly do think that a lot of people then that were growing up in that kind of subculture did pivot into like pursuing it professionally. Like, I mean, you have to imagine too, even like people in professions like graphic design or something, like I'm sure there are a lot of people that cut their teeth on like pirated software and then
that's literally how we all got
ultimately
like
totally. And then
one person gets Adobe Master Collection and they spread it around.
and then hopefully you turn, like when you have, your situation is has evolved or something, like you can kind of turn that into using it professionally.
I mean, the way I learned how to use digital audio workstations was through a pirated copy of pirated copy of Reason that my brother gave me.
Sure.
My God, I learned
2006
Reason.
or
I
something.
miss you, Reason.
Yeah, I learned everything I need to know about audio editing from a bootleg or a cracked copy of Cool Edit Pro 2.0.
Oh, nice. Cool.
All right, we're on the bootleg section of the podcast.
This would just be one long beep to protect our FBI file.
Oh God, just dub over it. Oh my God. Yeah, no, do my best. Go on.
But like I said, so you can watch it on Amazon Prime. It's the dub version only. You can see both versions on Crunchyroll. And I believe Crunchyroll also has the TV series.
I know this still have it.
Yeah, the
awesome.
TV series used to be on Hulu, but it isn't anymore. And actually, I think Crunchyroll's the only place to see it now, which is too bad. But
wow!
I mean, you know what I mean.
Okay,
it's just like
it's not a thing
more
that
widely
people
available.
just have already unless they're
either
already
way.
into anime.
Yeah, either way, it's available through those venues. Otherwise, William Winkler Productions released a series of English dubbed compilation films that comprising the entire all the major arcs of the series. So there's one about everything with Shin, there's everything with Souther. Those are available. I don't know how regularly available, but you can probably find them on YouTube. But
you can find this movie on YouTube.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Probably.
And like I said, Discotech did a great job in releasing all of this stuff as well.
Yeah.
So if you want to pay money for it, it's available to you.
Pay money for it.
Right? That's so diplomatic. Give me some credit, guys.
No, that's great,
I'm
man.
sorry, that's great. It's like, I mean, I guess if you want to give some money, no. But no, whatever you go, whatever way you do watch it, you're in for a good time. And oh boy, you're probably gonna cry manly tears at least once or twice, and just understand there are 6 recap episodes. You can skip them, and life will go on, including the final episode of the goddamn series. So you can miss that. It's okay.
Oh wow! The final episode is a recap.
The final episode of the first Fist of the North Star series is a recap, and you can skip it.
Wow.
Life goes on.
Weird. Well,
that's my
I heard
PSA
that's what
for
Avengers
the night.
Endgame is, right?
Don't, Marty. Don't you
No!
do this.
No.
Don't
this
do it.
episode's
Don't.
already long. Let's not get into Marvel. No.
Sorry.
I have to hold out 48
My
hours.
flesh is pushing out of my skeleton.
Well, thank you so
What
much for
color is your
listening.
blood?
No,
No.
stop. We got to finish this. It's almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to our show. If you like the show, then please leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice, wherever you're listening to this on. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are at Heroes, the number 3 podcasts on all 3 of them. And before we get anything else, Mike, is there anything you want to plug?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Risk System, which is the awesome, cool shoot-'em-up game. I'm the voice of the first boss. It is currently on, well, as of this recording, it is just been announced for the release date of May 14th. It'll be actually
awesome.
Yeah, so you can go check that out. You can download a demo at risksystem.itch.io. It'll be only for PC. Otherwise,
it's listed on Steam.
Yeah, it's listed on Steam right now. You can wish list it. Go do that now.
I did that earlier today.
Yep. Happy
Nice.
times. Other than that, you can find me over on Twitter at mock_dent, making all manner of karate bugmen ramblings. And you can also find me on the podcast, the Cockpit Co-Pilot, where we talk about Metal Hero shows and the like. We just finished recording about Space Hero Charavan. I believe that is already out, and we're getting ready to talk about Strider next.
Very cool.
Hey, Mike, you should plug your Twitch too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That wasn't planned, I swear. Twitch.tv/mockdent. I stream Super Robot Wars T voiced playthroughs where I attempt to do voices for about 100 plus characters in a massive crossover roster. All your
if you're into that stuff, it's a fun time. You should
even
check
if
it
you're
out.
not into that stuff,
nice.
just show up.
Right, of course.
I mean, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Carlos. No, go check that out Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. CST, 3 p.m. Pacific. And I think
Very
that
cool.
should be all of that.
Sounds good to me. And so next week, we're going to get back into our normal martial arts Hong Kong action cinema fare. So, Carlos, what is our training for next week?
So, we're gonna dive into some more Shaw Brothers stuff because I think it's kind of one of the corners that we don't pay attention to the most, and there's still a ton of fun stuff left to look at. So, I think we're gonna start with a classic. It's called The Five Deadly Venoms, or The Five Venoms.
Nicely done.
And we're gonna look into some of the films of the Venom mob. So we mentioned in the Ip Man films Lo Ming, and I think I mentioned in Ip Man 3, Mike Tyson himself said that one of his favorite kung fu movies was Crippled Avengers.
Yeah.
So I think it's time for us to take a look at these guys, and I hope you join us.
All right, sounds good. Well, until next week, we're taking a look at The Five Deadly Venoms. I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And I'm Mike.
And we are the Heroes 3 plus Mike. Remember your training. Heroes 3 is part of the Hokuto Brothers Podcast Network.